The year is 1943. A new breed of sea power takes wing. These are not merely machines. They are the heavy cavalry of a new age, venturing toward a rendezvous that will shift the tides of the Pacific. We are looking at the Grumman F6F Hellcat, a fighter forged specifically to answer the Japanese Zero. Unlike its predecessors, it carries the massive Pratt & Whitney double Wasp engine, 2,000 horsepower, encased in armor plating, designed not just to fly, but to take punishment and return home. Observe the flight deck, a floating airstrip pitching in the open sea. The coordination required here is a mechanical ballet. The Avengers and Helldivers, you see, are heavy with destruction, yet they leap from these short decks with a precision that defies gravity. What few realize is the engineering marvel of the hydraulic catapults and the folding wing mechanisms, innovations that allowed us to pack nearly 100 aircraft onto a single hull. This density of firepower was the surprise weapon the enemy never calculated. Now we ride with the pilot. These images, captured by the very gun cameras synced to the firing mechanism, offer a terrifyingly clear view of aerial warfare. Notice the tracers. Our pilots are trained to hold fire until the bullets converge at exactly 300 yards. This is the zone of lethality. Unlike the enemy, who often relies on maneuverability and light frames, our doctrine relies on heavy armor and the devastating, concentrated punch of 6 50-caliber machine guns tearing through airframes. The return trip is often the most perilous. The landing signal officer, the LSO, stands exposed on the stern, guiding these 5-ton birds onto a moving deck with nothing but colored paddles and nerve. It takes a unique breed of aviator to trust his life to a hook and a wire. The arresting gear engines below deck must absorb the kinetic energy of a crashing plane in mere seconds. It is a violent, controlled collision that happens dozens of times a day, turning the vast ocean into a precise airfield. This is the reality of the task force. We do not spray lead indiscriminately. We fire in bursts to conserve barrels and ammunition. As we push toward Kwajalein and beyond, the skies are clearing. Air superiority is not just about the pilot's skill, but about the rugged, relentless durability of American engineering.
Here is the famous Berlin Sleeper on its way to raid Frosinone Aerodrome near Rome. The 103 bombing missions of this remarkable fortress include targets in France, Holland, Belgium, Tunisia, Italian Libya, Pantelleria, Sardinia, Sicily, and Italy. The Sleeper is now back in the States. Moving day for the 321st Bombardment Group brought thunderstorms, heavy showers, and mud. Planes, tractors, and men were bogged down to a snail's pace by the weather conditions. But in the 48 hours allotted for the job, the camp was torn down, equipment and supplies loaded and packed, and the movement completed. They used C-47 cargo planes and their own B-25s. 24 hours after they landed in Italy, the group flew their first mission. Thunderbolt crews at a fighter station of the 8th Air Force in Great Britain are detailed to escort flying fortresses on a bombing mission over Nazi Europe. While the pilots are briefed, ground crews have prepared the P-47s, loading machine gun ammunition, testing the guns, filling the auxiliary tanks for long range. These squadrons are leaving for the front, the great air front over Western Europe. Heading east, they rendezvous at the appointed time and place with the heavy bombers. And here are the heavies, giant fortresses that drop their tons of high explosives on pinpoint targets. As an attack by German Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs is about to develop, the Thunderbolts peel off to intercept, to protect their bombers. They have done their job well, turned back the Hun, while the bombers released their destructive cargoes. In the process, many enemy fighters were down. As soon as the pilot lands, his crew chief rushes up to hear the score. But in addition to the pilot's account, there's a film record of action when the guns were fired. This camera, shooting alongside the fighters' guns, can give us precise evidence of what happened in the sky battle we've just seen. This roll of film will be rushed to the developer, and here's the story it tells. A good day's hunting by a Thunderbolt. On the River Seine, halfway between Le Havre and Paris, is today's target, Le Trait. Objectives are power plants, boiler houses, repair shops, and shipyards. 36 B-26s took off, 33 attacked, protected by 11 squads of Spitfires. Workshops were hit with 40 tons of bombs. All vessels docked here were set afire as 4 other fighter squads swept the area. This was an extremely successful bombing mission, since there were no losses or casualties for our side. On a mission over Saint-Nazaire, a fortress is attacked as she completes her bombing run. Hit fatally and engine smoking, the ship plummets down and crashes into the sea, a flaming comet. On a frosty English morning, an 8th Air Force crew trots to its plane, its engines turning over. The famous Memphis Belle. They move down the line in their regular order. A mighty armada of flying fortresses is taking off in a major daylight raid against northern Germany. They're going to strike at the heart of the enemy, Wilhelmshaven, a big naval base just west of the Danish peninsula. As they pass over the Frisian Islands, the windows are winking in the sun. Crossing over the continent, they approach the target. The Germans light hundreds of smoke pots to hide the harbor installations, but they're too late. This heavy flak indicates how important the target is. Bombs away! Now interceptors charge in. A battle royal takes place over the harbor. An ME-109 flashes by. The air is full of flak and Focke-Wulfs and flying forts and darting Messerschmitts. Hits have been scored on ships, docks, and warehouses. The destruction is terrific. Continual German interception at the height of the bombing, trying every kind of attack. A stricken American Eagle drops out of formation, fading fast. But as the fortresses leave the smoking target behind, they resume formation, filling in gaps for the planes that won't make the round trip. Feathering its prop, this fortress limps back. At long last, home base. The mission has been completely successful, but we paid the price in men and materiel, and both must be replaced from home. This bombardier got a piece of shrapnel when the nose of the fortress was blown away in exchange for the several tons of bombs left in Wilhelmshaven.
Look to the skies, America. There she is, the heavy-hitting hammer of the 8th Air Force, the consolidated B-24 Liberator. While the Fortress holds the line, the Liberator expands the front. You are looking at a marvel of modern engineering that has turned the tide of battle from the Channel coast to the heart of the Reich. Note the high-mounted wing, the famous Davis design. It's thin, it's long, and it slices through the air with an efficiency that allows this bird to carry a heavier payload faster and farther than any other heavy bomber in our arsenal. See those bomb bay doors? They don't swing open like barn doors, dragging in the wind. They roll up into the fuselage like a garage shutter, keeping our speed high right up to the moment of delivery. And delivery is what this ship is all about. Thanks to the wizards at Willow Run, American industry is pumping out one of these four-engine giants every single hour. It is the sheer weight of numbers, combined with advanced tricycle landing gear and a 10-man crew of the finest boys from back home, that is dismantling the enemy war machine brick by brick. This is the Liberator, the long arm of liberty reaching across the Atlantic.
May 1945. The guns have fallen silent across Europe. The 1,000-year Reich has crumbled in 12 fierce years of war. Now, as the dust settles over the continent, we can walk through the ruins of what was once the most feared air force on Earth, the Luftwaffe. These airfields, once beehives of activity launching blitzes against London and convoys to Russia, are now silent graveyards of twisted aluminum and broken ambitions. Walking among the skeletons of these warbirds, we see the physical toll of total defeat. Here lies the Heinkel 111, the old workhorse that once darkened the skies over Britain, now stripped of its engines by curious GIs. There, the shattered remains of the heavy Heinkel 177 Greif, a bomber plagued by engine fires, a design so complex it often defeated itself before an Allied fighter ever fired a shot. But amidst the conventional wreckage, we find the desperate, futuristic gambles of a dying regime. Look closely at the small, tailless rocket-powered plane resting on its dolly wheels, the Messerschmitt Comet. An interceptor that drank volatile fuels so dangerous they could dissolve a pilot alive. It was a weapon of pure desperation, capable of climbing vertically to the bomber streams, but possessed of an endurance measured in mere minutes. It sits now, impotent and captured, a symbol of too little, too late. We see the backbone of the fighter force, the Focke-Wulf 190s and the Messerschmitt 109s, aircraft that fought from the sands of North Africa to the snows of Stalingrad. Now, they are souvenirs. American pilots, men who perhaps fought these very machines in the air only weeks ago, now climb over them, inspecting the cockpits, turning the propellers, marveling at the engineering of a foe they have finally bested, while servicing their victorious P-51 Mustangs. Even the mighty twin-engine night fighters, the Ju-88s and Heinkel 219, equipped with their radar antlers, lie camouflaged and abandoned in the tree lines. They were hunted to extinction, grounded not just by our fighters, but by a lack of fuel, a lack of pilots, and the relentless pounding of our daylight raids. This footage is the epitaph of the German Air Force and their Nazi regime. It is a scene of absolute destruction, where the pride of a nation has been reduced to scrap metal scattered across the fields of Europe. The war is over, and the sky belongs to the victors. Formed in secret. Thousands of tons of steel matting, high-octane gasoline, and American mechanics were transported over dangerous Arctic convoys to the plains of Ukraine. There, amidst the ruins of war, American air bases rose from the mud. This operation changes the calculus of the entire war. With bases in Russia, there is no place left in Europe for the Luftwaffe to hide. We can strike the enemy from behind, land, rearm, and strike him again on the return trip. But beyond the strategic brilliance, there is a human story here. When those B-17 touched down on Soviet soil, it is the first time many of these young Americans have met their Eastern allies. It is a meeting of East and West, sharing soup and cigarettes on the wing of a bomber, united by a single driving purpose: the unconditional defeat of the Axis powers. This is the story of that brief historic handshake. This is Operation Titanic. The year is 1944. The fortress of Europe sits behind the wall of steel and flak. For years, the heavy bombers of the 8th Air Force have hammered at the roof of this fortress, but they have paid a terrible price. The German Luftwaffe, flying from interior lines, has taken a heavy toll on our formations. But the tide is turning. A new strategy has emerged, written in the vapor trails high above the continent. It is a strategy of total air supremacy. To achieve this, American industry has delivered a triad of avenging angels. The rugged P-47 Thunderbolt, a machine so tough it can fly through a brick wall and come home. The twin-engine P-38 Lightning, the fork-tailed devil that ranges far and wide. And the P-51 Mustang, the thoroughbred that can escort our big friends all the way to Berlin and back. But having the planes is only half the battle. The logistics of this air war are staggering. Consider the fuel. A bomber flies straight and true, conserving its energy. A fighter must weave, climb, dive, and orbit. It burns fuel at a ferocious rate. To protect a bomber stream of perhaps 100 aircraft deep into Germany, we cannot simply send 100 fighters. We must send waves. As one group reaches its fuel limit and turns for home, another must arrive to take its place. It requires a ratio of 10 fighters for every one bomber to maintain a constant shield. It is a ballet of timing and gasoline, orchestrated over hundreds of miles of hostile sky. The orders have changed, too. Under the command of General Jimmy Doolittle, our pilots are no longer leashed to the bomber formations. The order is now pursue and destroy. When the Luftwaffe rises to fight, our boys do not wait. They hunt. They seek out the enemy in the air, and if he refuses to fly, they seek him out on the ground. You are about to witness the results of this relentless pressure. The camera guns in the wings of our fighters record the destruction of an air force. We see the strafing of airfields, where the enemy is destroyed before he can even turn a propeller. We see the destruction of the railways, the arteries that feed the German war machine. A single fighter diving at 400 miles an hour becomes a precision instrument of havoc, tearing up locomotives and ammunition trains with 50 caliber rounds. This is a war of attrition. The enemy pilot flies until he dies. He has no rotation, no rest. Our men fly their tour, pass on their knowledge to the next class, and return to the fray fresh and determined. The result is inevitable. This is an image that has already been seared into the national consciousness. 6 men struggling against the wind atop a volcanic cone, raising the stars and stripes. It is a symbol of victory, yes, but more importantly, it is a testament to the uncommon valor of the men fighting and dying on the black sands below. From the air, Iwo Jima looks like a pork chop cut from stone. It is 8 square miles of volcanic ash and sulfur vents, a desolate rock sitting 700 miles south of Tokyo. It is ugly, it smells of rotten eggs, and it has no fresh water. Yet, for the United States Army Air Forces, this ugly rock is the most valuable piece of real estate in the Pacific. It is the only thing standing between our B-29 superfortresses and a safe return home. The logic of war is cold. To save the lives of thousands of bomber crews flying the long haul from the Marianas to Japan, the Marines must take this island. The Japanese know this. Lieutenant General Kuribayashi has turned Iwo Jima into a fortress not built on the island, but in it. There are no trenches here. There are 11 miles of tunnels, caves, and concrete pillboxes connecting 1,500 underground rooms. When the landing craft dropped their ramps on February 19th, the beaches were deceptively quiet. It was a trap. As the Marines struggled up the terraces of soft, shifting ash that bogged down tanks and exhausted men, the enemy opened fire from hidden positions. It was a massacre on the waterline. This is not a battle of maneuver. It is a slow, grinding frontal assault against an invisible enemy who has sworn to kill 10 Americans for every one of his own lives lost. The naval bombardment, the heaviest in history, could not crack the subterranean defenses. It falls to the infantryman with his rifle, his flamethrower, and his demolition charges to burn and blast the enemy out, cave by cave, yard by bloody yard. Overhead, carrier-based aircraft, Hellcats and Corsairs, fly dangerously low, dropping napalm and rockets to support the advance. They are clearing the path for the prize, the airfields. Even while the fighting rages, the first crippled B-29s are already making emergency landings, their crews looking out at the carnage that bought their safety. The cost is staggering. Nearly 7,000 Americans will lay down their lives here. 20,000 Japanese defenders will fight to the death. But as the flag flies over Suribachi and the airfields teem with American planes, the message is clear. The front door to the Japanese homeland has been kicked open. The vast Pacific, a theater of war measuring 64 million square miles. Here, the rising sun is setting. But in its final dying light, it casts a terrifying shadow. The Empire of Japan, pushed back to its very doorstep, has abandoned the traditional rules of warfare. They have resurrected a ghost from their history, the Kamikaze, the divine wind. Centuries ago, a typhoon destroyed a Mongol invasion fleet and saved Japan. Today, they hope to recreate that miracle, not with wind and rain, but with flesh and blood. Intelligence reports reveal a chilling reality about these special attack corps. These are not the samurai of old. They are mere boys, some as young as 17, rushed through flight schools with barely 40 hours of time in the cockpit. They are taught just enough to take off and steer, but never how to land. Their graduation ceremony is a funeral service. Their weapons are often the scrapings of the barrel, obsolete fighters and dive bombers laden with explosives and stripped of armor. But the enemy is also innovating in their desperation. We have seen a new nightmare in the sky, the Oka. The Americans call it the Baka bomb, the Fool. It is a rocket-powered glider, a manned missile dropped from a bomber, screaming toward our ships at 500 miles an hour, too fast for a human gunner to track. At Okinawa, the typhoon of steel, the cost is horrific. The wooden flight decks of our carriers, unlike the armored decks of our British allies, are vulnerable. A single fanatic can turn a majestic ship into a blazing inferno, crippling our power projection. To stop this suicidal swarm, the Navy relies on the ace makers, the Grumman Hellcat and the Vought Corsair. These machines are rugged, heavily armed, and flown by men who have mastered the air. But even they cannot catch every leaker. When a plane breaks through the combat air patrol, it falls to the gunners on the decks. But bullets often pass right through these fragile suicide planes without detonating the explosives. We needed a weapon that doesn't just hit. We needed a weapon that thinks. And American science has delivered. It is called the VT Proximity Fuse. A miracle of miniaturization, it puts a tiny radio radar inside a 5-inch anti-aircraft shell. It does not need to hit the target. It senses the enemy plane and detonates the shell at the precise moment to shred the attacker with a cloud of high-velocity steel. This is the story of how American ingenuity met the ultimate fanaticism and won. The Pacific is a chessboard of coral and jungle, but the king on this board sits menacingly on the tip of New Britain, Rabaul. To the Japanese imperial forces, this is more than a harbor. It is the Gibraltar of the South. Simpson Harbor is choked with supply ships, the airfields are teeming with Zero fighters, and 100,000 troops are dug into the volcanic soil, waiting for an invasion that would cost the Allies dearly in blood. But General Kenny and the 5th Air Force have drafted a different plan. We are not going to storm the beaches of Rabaul. We are going to turn the sky into a ceiling of steel and starve them out. To crack a nut this hard, the standard rule book of high-altitude precision bombing has been thrown out the window. We are witnessing the birth of the Strafer. These are not your standard glass-nosed bombardier ships. The 5th Air Force mechanics, under the guidance of the legendary Pappy Gunn, have transformed them into heavy gunships. The B-25G model carries a secret weapon in its solid nose, a 75mm M4 cannon. It is a field artillery piece strapped to an airplane. Manually loaded by the navigator, it fires a high-explosive shell capable of sinking a destroyer or blowing a tank apart from 2 miles away. But the cannon is just the opening salvo. The real devastation comes from the parafrags, fragmentation bombs attached to small parachutes. Our boys in the A-20 Havocs and B-25s are flying so low, literally skimming the jungle canopy at treetop level, that if they dropped standard bombs, the blast would take down their own aircraft. The parachutes delay the explosion just enough for the attacker to escape, shredding enemy aircraft parked on the ground. It is a terrifying, intimate form of warfare. Pilots are returning to base with palm fronds stuck in their landing gear and salt spray on their windshields. This campaign is a symphony of destruction. High above, the twin-boom P-38 Lightnings sweep the skies of enemy interceptors, while the heavy B-24 Liberators pound the wharves from altitude. Down on the deck, the modified Mitchells and Havocs are skipping bombs across the water like stones, slamming them directly into the hulls of Japanese transports. We are systematically cutting the arteries of the empire. Watch as the coordinated might of the U.S., Australian, and New Zealand Air Forces converge on a single point in history. The fortress of Rabaul is about to wither on the vine.
Every aircraft has a story that deserves to be told. Don't let these legends fade into the past. Like this video and subscribe to our channel and help us keep aviation history alive.